Hi, it's Gadget UK here again. This time I'm looking at one of these 60 to 72 pin Famicom adapters. You know, it adapts basically NES carts to the Famicom, you know, sort of 60 pin type connector. Now these things are pretty cheap. You can buy them on eBay for about, I don't know, £10ish. I paid about that for mine, I think. Some of them come with a shell. Show you, switch this off, take the Everdrive out. Some of them come with a shell that encapsulates the PCB there, and others just have this PCB like this. I think they use the same board from what I can see. It's just like they can get a plastic sort of thing that fits around it, a little shell. So I just got the bare board version. You can see the modifications required here. There are two. Up here, now this is the back side. Normally there'll be a label on here that says front. It's obvious to me, I just have to remember that the components are on the back side of the board. You know, that's the side that faces out the front there, that's got nothing on it. But on the back side here, and I'll post some links down below, this is not something I've worked out myself, I think it was Assembly Games or somewhere I found the article, so yeah, I'll post the link, you can have a look. But basically there's two traces here, these two with the wires on, that normally are joined on this PCB, so you've got to use, you know, a little blade or something. Be very careful you don't damage that little wire down there, because there's a wire in between, just below the little joint, and you've got to separate them. Test continuity on your image, make sure they're isolated from each other. That's the first thing to do, and then separate these two pins down here. It's easier if you look at the screenshot rather than, you know, the article, the forum thread there with the photograph, rather than try and use this video as a guide, because you're probably not going to be able to see enough detail there to work out which pins it is, and there's no real markings on here, so you've got to sort of look at positions of the nearby wires and traces and try and work it out from the photo. But you can see here the left hand side of these two, you know, again, separate those two pins because they're joined, and then the left one comes up, goes to the right one here, I think, is that right? Yeah, and then the right hand one goes to the left hand one up here that you separated. So you know, each of these two pins should be coming down here. They're kind of flipped in terms of orientation. You know, the left one's going to the right one, the right one's going to the left one. So that gives you MMC5 support, so things like Gauntlet and Mario World 3 or whatever it is, those should all work properly after that. And then the other mod here is the expansion audio. Because I'm using an Everdrive, I want the expansion audio on this. So you just have two 10k resistors. Yeah, they're different colours, the bands don't look right there, but it is 10k, it's just a different style of resistor, both quarter watt. And as you can see, you have you know, the first one comes up here and then just goes straight down to this point here, and again these two pins, these two pads here are joined, so you've got to separate them. And on the right hand side one, you have a 10k resistor coming up to the output of that 10k resistor. I've tested that, that works really well, gives you expansion audio on your Famicom games and things, you know, and using the Everdrive here, so that works out really well. Now you'll notice this here, this I was getting problems, you know, what was happening is certain games, things like Bubble Bobble, even Castlevania 3, were unstable. They would run for maybe 2 or 3 minutes at most, then it would glitch, it would crash, it would hang. And I spent ages looking at the actual Famicom itself. I've recapped it as part of the previous video you've seen there. Checked everything really to try and understand what might be the faults. I did suspect maybe a RAM fault at one point, but then I thought, well, okay, let's test it with the original carts, and I've got a bunch of original carts, some of which are here, and they all work fine. You don't get any issues at all. So then things would appear to point to the Everdrive. You'd start to think, okay, well, there's some incompatibility with this PCB and the Everdrive N8, because I know that this works solid on my you know, PAL NES. There's no problems at all. It's totally rock solid, never a single glitch or crash or anything. But as soon as you use it with this, with the same games but for different regions, you know, for US or Japanese, and it will freeze after 2 or 3 minutes or lock or reboot. So I spent a while looking at the pinouts of this, how this adapter works, and it's kind of they flipped the orientation and flipped sides as well. So it's like, you know, some of the pins on this side up here end up coming down to the bottom side down here, and the way, because of that, you've got lots of wires. Can you see? So it's not going to focus very well, but you've got tons of little traces coming down to wires, and the wires are going through to the other side and then coming across, you know, and down and all the rest of it. So you've got quite long traces here, you know, a long array of traces, and this sort of thing here can pick up noise and stuff depending on traces that are nearby. So straight away I start thinking, okay, well, let's assume it's probably going to be related to something that's fast clocked, you know, a clock outputs, you know, a clock signal, rather than just the data and address lines. They're perhaps not quite going to be quite high enough frequency. It's going to be the clock, if anything, a clock trace running next to something. So there are two clocks. There's a system clock on the 72-pin connector. I think it's the top pin, it might be that one there, I can't quite remember now. It's like pin 1 up. It's one of the very edge pins, the system clock. And then next to it is the M2, which is like a phase adjusted clock. I think it's like a bit like the pi, you know, the PHI clock on the, I can't remember say it, is it phi clock on the C64. I think there's like a clock that's slightly offset or something. And that M2 clock is present on the 60 pin side. I need to sidestep a bit there. That system clock doesn't get passed through, so it can't be relevant because it's not going anywhere. And in fact, when I look at it, the way it's wired, it just doesn't go anywhere, I don't think. But the it might go to ground, I can't quite remember. But on the 60 pin side, the M2 clock is where's it go? Goes to can you see there's just a little via next to where I've soldered that pad there. So it flips over the other side and it comes out here. Sorry, I'll see if I can get this on camera. Comes out here and it goes all the way up here, all the way along there, right next to these long traces. So straight away I thought, let's try a cap on that trace. So I put a 22 picofarad cap on there, and it's rock solid. I can't believe it hit it first time. That's exactly what it was. The length of that trace, perhaps picking up noise, and because it's a clock, you know, it's a system clock, it's quite fundamental really. You start getting bits of noise and things on there, you know, doesn't take much at all, and you're going to get a crash. So that has made my Everdrive N8 now fully compatible with a Famicom here. The interesting thing is, I did some research, I searched the forums, and I found lots of people with similar, if not identical, problems, and the answer was, you know, you're screwed. It's those adapters. You need to get the Famicom version of the Everdrive, and that's what one or two people seem to have done. I also found another forum, something to do with some modern bit of hardware. I can't remember what it's called now. I don't know whether it's like an FPGA remake, but uses the actual CPU and PPU. They were having the same problem with it glitching on certain games, Bubble Bobble in particular, where it hangs and it freezes and stuff. So if you've got one of those, I don't know what it's called. Again, I'll post some links down below, then because I just can't remember off the top of my head. Just try a cap on the M2 line there. Assuming you've got a 60 pin connector. If you've got a 72 pin, try a 22 picofarad cap, not only on the M2 line, and it's important to know how this is wired. It goes from I put a piece of tape over here just to isolate so that the solder won't flow all the way down the pad there, and then just solder this cap on the very edge, and the other side of the cap goes to the nearest ground, which is I'll perhaps give you a super macro on there. It's just this trace that goes up here to this first pin. That's your nearest ground. But yeah, to sidestep it aside, if you've got one of those new consoles, whatever they are, I can't remember what they're called, that is struggling with the Everdrive, try putting a 22 picofarad cap on the M2 pin to ground, and also the system clock. I don't know where that is on here. It might be pin 1. I honestly can't quite remember. It's probably, in fact, the system, it depends which size connector you use. The 72 pin has got a system pin. It's one of the very edge pins, system clock pin, but the 60 pin doesn't use it. So yeah, that's important to know. But yeah, I'll just give you a quick super macro just so you can see up close. Okay, so here's a super macro. You can see it's not my cleanest work. I need to remove that bit of solder there, just get a little bit on that pad. And I could do with getting some flux or something on these just to make these joints look a bit cleaner, because they're pointy and sharp and all that. It's just been thrown together really just to make sure this is working. But as you can see, you know, you separate those two with a craft knife or something. Just be careful not to damage any nearby traces or vias. Same up here. Separate those, just be careful with that little via. And obviously, you know, you've seen where the wires go. Like I said, the left one goes to the right one, the right one goes to the left one. Then you know, 10k resistor straight down, and a 10k across there like that. And then on this side, you can see the cap. Like I said, this is the ground point that comes down here, there's a couple of wires that just go to this trace, and like I say, just solder on the edge of there. And as I said earlier, you can use a piece of insulation tape or masking tape to just leave yourself a tiny sliver to solder onto, because then when you put your solder on and your flux and stuff, it won't spread all the way down the pad. But yeah, I'm amazed. That's another one of these cat type related noise problems that I've managed to fix with a bit of guesswork. So just to show you that this is not crashing now, actually you can see I've got the Everdrive plugged in there. I'll load Bubble Bobble and we'll just play it until I run out of lives. I think it's the last game I loaded, so I can just press start. There we go. I'll put the sound on. Start it. Previously, as I said, this you could only play this for maybe 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Sometimes they'd even do it 60 seconds in. If you're really lucky, you might get 4 or 5 minutes. But anyway, we'll just see. I'll perhaps show you some expansion audio after this as well. Well, not show you, but you can listen to it. I'll perhaps load Castlevania 3 up or something, because that's a good example. It's got some nice drum music and stuff on the music there. It's quite cool. So there we go, not bad. You can see I got to about around 21 or 20 there, I think. I've just pointed you straight down. You can see I am using the Everdrive N8 there with that. Turn this up, you should be able to hear the expansion audio. Let's just start that. Yeah, so you hear those like drums in the background there. I'll show you the US version in this in a minute, just so you can hear, but it's different. So hopefully you can tell it's different, slightly different. It's not got the percussion stuff in the background anywhere near as good as it is with the expansion audio. Yeah, so you hear those like drums in the background there. So hopefully you can tell it's different. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.